Hello and welcome to a tutorial about longtail cast on. The longtail cast on is a really great method for starting a project, in part because when we do it, we're actually creating a bit of a row of knitting already, and I'll show you what that means. So to start with longtail cast on, you do need a long tail. So it is one of the more frustrating things about longtail cast on, trying to figure out how long to leave your tail. And if you are someone who hates hates wasting yarn, one of the best things to do is to take the yarn and wrap it around. So if you were going to cast on 100 stitches, you could wrap it around. But I am just going to be demonstrating the technique here, and so I am going to leave this much yardage and call it good. Now, you have two options with starting a longtail cast on. You can simply drape the yarn over your needle like this, or you can create a slip knot. And a slip knot is a simple thing to do. You take the yarn and then you just flip it like that so that there is an X there. Take your fingers through it, grab the yarn and pull through. This is the kind of knot that you've done a lot as a kid, and one of the things that's good about it, as you can see, is the yarn slips through. When we're doing the longtail cast on, there are two ends that we have. We have the working end, and that is the one that goes to the ball. And then we have the tail, and that is the one that is a free end. And one of the things to do when working the longtail cast on is to make sure that the one that goes to the ball is coming from behind. So you can see this one here, when I'm holding the needle, it's the yarn going back, and the yarn from the tail is the one coming forward. Now you're going to do this funky thing with your fingers where you kind of pierce through the V created by the two ends. So I'm going to go through those, and then these three fingers come around and hold those two tails at the same time. All right, so then they're split. Or if you want to think about it, you can grab them with this finger first and then split those. Again, you want to make sure that the tail comes over your thumb and the working yarn to the ball goes over your finger. And then what you're going to do is you're going to do a little fancy move here. All right, so we've got our fancy handhold. A lot of people call this a slingshot. So what we need to do is we need to go down, kind of point at your thumb knuckle, tickle your thumb, come up, and then you're going to come up and you're going to wrap around the yarn from your finger and create a little bit of almost like you're making a stitch. All right, so you're going to come up and over the needle and pull back through that thumb loop. Pull your thumb out, because you don't need that anymore, and then gently use the thumb to tighten up a little bit. And then we're going to do that again. So we've got our slingshot, we go towards our thumb knuckle, we tickle our thumb and come up, and now we come down. We can think about stroking down your finger. You don't have to touch your finger, but you're going to come around like that, so like you're pointing down through your finger, and that creates a loop on your right needle, and you need to get that loop through the circle on your thumb. So we're just going to bring it through. We don't need a loop on our thumb and on our needle, so we're going to drop it off the thumb, and we're just going to use our thumb to tighten that up. Going faster, it looks more like this. So tickle the thumb, down behind, through the loop, tighten. This is a long tail cast on because, like I said, you need a long tail. And there are a few things about this cast on that I just want to point out before we finish up. So this is how it works. The longtail cast on, if you tighten very tight, you will create a tight cast on, because the way that stitches stretch on a cast on is right here in this lateral move. So some people like to cast on over 2 needles or cast on a really big needle, but what that does is it creates a tall loop here, but it doesn't create play here. You can still have a really tight, those tall stitches can still be really tightly packed. They can be in a high urban density, but we want them to have a little bit of stretch. So when you are doing your longtail cast on and you're coming back to tighten, don't yank it. Don't go really rough. You want there to be space between on this bottom stretch. And that way, knit stitches which want to stretch will have a stretchy cast on. Now, I'm not saying the long tail is a stretchy cast on. However, it can be made more or less stretchy depending on how tightly you snug the stitches up next to each other. I mentioned at the beginning that this creates a row of fabric. So it is both a loop and then a loop coming out of that loop. So these stitches are actually knit stitches. If you look, this is the stockinette side, and this is the reverse stockinette side. So sometimes if you do a cast on and you wonder why the directions for the pattern are, say, they want you to start stockinette stitch and they tell you to knit across, and you know that if you knit across this, you'll create garter. That's because the long tail cast on creates a right side row. So what you might need to do is look at the wrong side row directions for your pattern, work the wrong side across, turn your fabric, and then you'll be on the right side again. I hope this helps you with your long tail cast on. If you are frustrated, there are many other cast-ons out there that work perfectly fine. The long tail cast on is neither better or worse, especially for the kind of knitter you are. So happy exploring with knitting, and I hope this helped.